I accidentally discovered my strict college professor's dirty little secret. My professor has been driving me out of my mind all semester, and it's not just because I have a huge crush on him. I know it's ridiculous to have such an intense crush on my professor who has to be maybe 20 years older than me, but I haven't been able to control myself since the first time I laid eyes on him. He is a 6-foot silver fox who rolls his sleeves up every time he begins lecturing, and I can only admit to the internet that he makes me blush just by calling on me in class. I have had crushes on all of my history teachers before him, and maybe it's just because he happens to be an Egyptologist instead of a typical historian, but he's effing irresistible to me. Before you judge me, he doesn't wear a wedding ring and has never mentioned having a family. See, the only reason I've had such an obsession when it comes to my past history professors is because I love what they teach. Ever since I was a kid I've loved reading history books about battle formations and legendary warlords. So when I'm sitting in a classroom listening to an attractive man speak knowledgeably about topics I'm so passionate about, some wires just cross in my brain and body and I fall head over heels for them every time. But Professor Kane is something else. I have never had a teacher who has taught me so many new details and facts about eras I've been learning about for years. It doesn't help that he has this smooth deep voice and a full salt and pepper beard. I think my crush would have faded in time just like all my other ones in the past, but my professor seemed to take a weird liking to me, but not in the way I wanted. After Professor Kane noticed that I raised my hand more than any other student, and never missed the extra credit portion on an assignment, he offered to do an independent study with me. I would meet him in his office once a week for private lectures on any topic of my choice as long as I wrote research papers on each lecture he designed just for me. It was a steamy, intellectual intimacy like I had never felt before, and it made my knees weak to be sitting there in front of Professor Kane as he explained ancient Egyptian medicine to me with stars in his eyes. I've wanted him for months, but he has been nothing but polite and professional to me. He assigns me more work than anyone in the class, and asks for regular meetings to discuss my work, but I've never caught him even taking a second glance at me. I felt my lust in secret. I would think of Professor Kane during Tinder hookups and I knew my insane crush was only growing. As the end of the semester closed in, I started to realize that soon my time with Professor Kane would be over for good. It had been a tough week, and I wanted to make my research paper to Professor Kane extra polished, so I ended up going over it again and again, until eventually, I noticed something strange. My word count was off. I checked it a billion times, but my document kept saying there more words than I had written. I didn't solve the mystery until I highlighted every word in the doc and tried to change the font. That's what finally revealed a secret message typed at the bottom of my research paper. I was dumbfounded, but after I read the message, I had to hold the edge of my desk to keep from fainting. The message said I loved you in that tight little skirt today. The same day I had written the paper, I wore a short skirt to Professor Kane's private lecture. At first, I told myself I was delusional. I had to be, so I checked who had access to the doc and sure enough, it was Professor Kane and Kane alone. My heart thudded in my chest as I realized he was the only one who could have left the naughty message, and I felt 1,000 emotions in my chest at once. I wanted him, of course, I did, but to read his words so direct, so inappropriate, I knew it was wrong but it felt so effing right. I snapped out of my wild daydreams for a second to check the rest of the private research papers I had written for Professor Kane. My heart stopped beating in my chest and fell right to my stomach when I slowly discovered each and every one of the dirty messages that Professor Kane had been leaving in white text at the bottom of each of my papers. They had to be written from him. He would reference jewelry I would wear to his lectures and would constantly point out what outfits he likes me best in. There were a few messages where he detailed how he wanted to take me right there in his office, and listed everything he would do to me. Just reading those messages had me sweating, and I've never wanted anyone more in my entire life. I never knew it was possible to crave somebody like this. I need his hands on me like I need water, like I need food and warmth. I want him more than anything, and now I finally know that he wants me too.